to the third and final installment of our series, which covers no-shows and those who renege on job offers. So over the last few weeks, we've been covering the question of how can you spot a candidate during the interview process who is likely to pull a no-show on you or later flake on you during the interview process. In parts 1 and 2, we covered this from a mental, physical, and agility pulse point of view, all taken from the 5 pulse model. In today's video, we're going to be covering this from an emotional and spiritual pulse point of view. So let's get right to it. I'm going to give you 8 risk factors that may increase the likelihood that a candidate may flake on you or not show on the first day of work from an emotional and spiritual perspective. Let's start right now. Number 1, and this is pretty obvious, but they don't appear excited or engaged when talking about the role. Of course, people are different, and an introvert versus an extrovert may show up differently in an interview process and may be differently excited by different things in the interview process. But the key here is it's all about congruence. So the key is to look for how excited somebody is when discussing initially what the role is on the screening call, and if that slowly starts dwindling off during the interview process. Look for consistency and congruence in their behavior and try and decide to see whether or not they appear consistently excited or engaged throughout the whole process. If that's the case, then it's a pretty good sign. If they start dwindling off, then that's a risk for you to watch out for. Number 2, inappropriate tone in their communication. So this one, what I would look out for here is, we all know that finding a job, pretty formal process. If you find that their tone in an interview or in an email actually appears quite informal, or they appear quite lazy or lax during their email communications with you, and they don't appear as engaged, or I would say match the tone of your emails, then it's a risk factor that they may later pull out or not show interest in the role going forward. Number 3, they seem relatively happy in their current role. So this is always quite a big one, especially if you're reaching out to them rather than them reaching out to you. And while they accepted to talk to you and they gave you the time to discuss the role, there may always be the slight chance that they figure out that they're happy where they are, even though they've explored the option with you, and decide to stay in their current role. So try and watch out for the signs that tell whether they may just be using you as a counter offer so that they can go back to their current employer and try and negotiate a better deal for themselves. Number 4, they actually seem relatively desperate to get out of their current role. So I know that this is actually seemingly the exact opposite of what I said in the 3rd point, but what a good idea is to do is to look and see if somebody's very keen to get out of their role. They may just be using you as almost like another lifeline so that they can get out of their current role, use you in the meantime, and then if something better comes along, then they'll just later flake on you. So just be aware of those who are overly desperate to find a new role and try and figure out the reasons for really why they're looking to move. Number 5, the role is at odds with their lifelong passion. If someone is pursuing an intense hobby and that hobby is likely to be able to be monetized later on, but takes a while to get there, beware of those people, because generally what they would be doing is probably using you again for a transitionary period until they are able to realize their lifelong dream. So encourage those dreamers to follow their bliss, but beware the carpenter accountant. Number 6, their hobbies and interests aren't aligned to the role or what the company can offer them. In this case, the person is unlikely to ever make money from their hobby. If they're going to be maxing out their holiday days on whitewater rafting or participating in salsa dancing contests, it doesn't actually mean that you shouldn't hire them. It just might mean that they may be unlikely to show up on the first day or later renege on your offer. Number 7, they said or did something that was at odds with what your company values and principles are. Of course, nothing as dramatic as you having to end the interview process and not hire them there on the spot, but big enough to say to you that down the line, they may not be aligned to what your company believes in, what it stands for, and how it operates. And this last one now comes with a twist. Beware the perfect candidate. If you are convinced that they are absolutely perfect for you and you have a huge, massive excitement because their skills match, their hobbies are aligned, they seem almost too good to be true, I would say watch out for that, because there's always something lurking underneath which might prove that they're not perfect. Whenever we are excited, we generally tune out of negative signs. And so, with the perfect candidate, it's best to expect the unexpected. Again, this is all very subtle, these signs. So, in no way would you be hiring somebody who ticked the boxes for all of these points, but you want to look out for one or two of these points in the interview process that may prove to later help you to see if somebody's later going to flake on you or if they're not going to show up on day one. So what can you do when someone is a high-risk, no-show candidate? There are 3 things that I would advise. The first is to bring up your doubts to the candidate directly and candidly. This is dramatically underused in my experience. And for me, it is so much better to be honest and upfront in the interview process by putting your concerns out there rather than waiting for them to later flake on you. So an example of this might be, hey Sam, I really like you. I think you're absolutely great and I would love to offer you this job. But there's something niggling in terms of me not being able to offer it to you because I'm not convinced that you really want to leave your current job. You seem really happy there. So please tell me what it is that you think about this and what are the real reasons why you're looking to leave. So not only will they appreciate your candor here, but they'll also be taken aback by the fact that you've taken the time to really try and tune in with what their real needs are. And they're likely to respond back much more openly and honestly in the process. Second is meet them in person. Asking honest questions in more of an informal environment over, let's say, lunch or coffee will give you so many more clues to what you're likely to find out in a formal interview process. And finally, if you can do it ethically and let it stretch for as long as possible, keep other candidates warm, at least until the day before or the day that the other candidate starts with you. That may not always be possible, but if you can get your number 1 candidate to start, let's say, within a week or 2 weeks of interviewing with you, then I'd say it's actually fine to let other candidates wait in the process. And that concludes our series of no-shows or renags. I hope that this was useful for you, and please let me know in the comments if you think that I have forgotten another big warning sign. I'm always keen to hear of any other signs if we've left them out. You can also download a free checklist of the 5 pulse model with all of the warning signs accurately portrayed underneath each pulse if you click on the link in the first comment. More videos like these will be coming out every week, and you can subscribe to them at www.hr360ltd/subscribe. Have a great rest of your week.